and tell you a little bit about the Tolly Group and give you some background on what we do. And we've been testing IT solutions for well over 30 years now. So we've been working with way back when, from 10 meg Ethernet to 400 gig today and up. So we have a lot of practical hands-on experience with this. We've worked with IX Chariot and other of the earlier projects. And so, our concern is to help vendors prove marketing claims. So the things we've been talking about already today are very, very important. Things about speeds and feeds, or performance under under pressure, under attack. So there's a lot of challenges. And I was making some notes I'll go over with you here now. So when we change from big iron to cloud apps, a lot of things change, right? In a way, the performance really is completely unknown, because we go from having a physical hardware environment to an instance, and not just one instance, right? If we go to Amazon or Azure or what have you, there's all different choices for instance characteristics in terms of resources with vCPUs, memory, networking, and you marry that together with a software product, and you don't know how it's going to perform until you actually test it. And that's what CyPerf is for. We've used it. I'll go through some examples in a couple of minutes. But unless you use something like CyPerf, you just don't know. And certainly for any environment, SMB through large enterprises, you really need to know what's going to happen when you put a solution up and start running your production traffic over it. So there's even things now when we talk about cloud and distributed that we didn't even really have to think about before. So for example, when we get something with 8 vCPUs, then we have to look at the system under test, whether it's a firewall, web application gateway, what have you, and see how it's allocating those CPUs, because the way that it's allocating the CPUs may impact its performance, right? So we have to look at that. And so when we look at different instance types, different allocation of resources, different parameter selections, right? When you look at any kind of security solution, SASE, SD-WAN, the more secure you want to make it, the more layers you're putting on, the more you can be impacting performance. When you put TLS on, which is essentially a must, what's that going to do for performance? When you look at migrating from TLS 1.2 to TLS 1.3, how is that going to impact performance, right? I've been testing for 30 years, but I can't tell you. I need a tool. And for us, CyPerf is a perfect tool because it can do all that. We do all those different things. And then you look at that, when we look at going from big iron to the cloud, with big iron, we did most of our testing on a rack in a test lab. I like to call it product on a pedestal. You plug it in, you hardwire everything, and you go, which is great. We still do that. You still need it. You got to know how the fabric's going to perform. Lots of things you need to know. But what you can't do in that environment is you can't know what's going to happen in the distributed environment. So you need a tool. You need a tool like CyPerf, where you can have agent instances on one cloud, on multiple clouds. One test we're working on now with CyPerf has us have some of the agents in the cloud and some of the agents off the cloud on a traditional internet location. So because CyPerf is agent or infrastructure agnostic, it can go anywhere. Those are big things that that we need. So right now we've already finished testing some cloud-based next generation firewalls with CyPerf, and that's going to be published later this month, later in April. We've got tests in progress, which are confidential until they're published, looking at SD-WAN and SASE, doing some of the things we've talked about today. And so in a few minutes here, what I tried to do is put together some of these, and you'll see them at the bottom of this slide here, the attributes that we see as important for meeting the testing challenges, and how we've seen those reflected in CyPerf. So realistic traffic. You have to have realistic traffic. And I think I'm just preaching to the choir here. Stateless layer 2, layer 3 traffic is great when you're testing out fabric or doing some basic work with VLANs or VXLANs. That's fine. But the higher up in the stack you get, when you want to test zero trust. When you want to test application-based identity, you need real traffic, stateful, full stack, and you need a large catalog of applications, not just one or two applications, but you need to have what the people who are going to be running this infrastructure will want to be using. Can it emulate or simulate Office 365? Can it do Facebook, social media type of things? And I think that's what CyPerf can do. It's got a very, very large catalog of applications. Can you repeat a test, right? The test is really no good if you can't run it again and again and again and get the same results. Now, granted, that's even a little bit more challenging in distributed environments because links between distributed environments can change things outside of your control. But from the basic black box, the basic systems under test, you need to be able to say, I'm going to run this test, I'm going to run it again, I'm going to run it again. Even in the cases, for example, when you're trying to determine how the connecting infrastructure might change. Yeah, let me run this test on a Monday morning local time, get some results, run it again midday, run it again later in the day between Amazon East and Amazon West. I know I haven't changed my systems under test. I know that my test tool is going to work the same way. So if there's any differences, I can attribute it most likely to the infrastructure in between. So repeatable test. Reporting, obviously. In prior years, most of the test tools that we used would generate reports, which are great. The great thing about CyPerf too is you get reports and you get the online, graphical. So you can be running tests, you can take a look, you can see visuals right away, see if the tests are what you're expecting. Because as you know, when you're doing testing, especially in the prototype phase, you have a basic idea for a test, you run it, you see what you get, see if the results are what you are expected. You may decide to increase the load. You may decide to increase the number of agents. You may decide to change some of the resource allocations and run again. And so having immediate graphical feedback is very, very helpful because it can help you understand whether or not you're on the right track with the testing that you want to do, or whether or not you need to go and still tweak some more parameters. Scalability. You got to be able to scale, and there's multiple aspects of scaling, right? We can talk about scaling across a distributed environment, single vendor cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid, but there's just scaling. Just in the case if you're testing one system under test, you have to make sure that the clients that are driving it have enough power, have enough resource to reach its limits. I mean, this is an issue we had, years ago. Is we'd get more and more powerful systems under test. And for example, if we're doing server testing, we'd have to kind of gang up more and more clients going after the server to make sure that we were reaching the limits and stressing the server. So the scalability is critical. The elasticity that we have with CyPerf is great. I can just spin up more agents as virtual instances and have those agents kind of join in with the testing to develop whatever load I need. So that's good. The flexibility, again, there too. The simplest test, single cloud, but even single cloud tests are not that simple because of the reasons that I had said already. But when you start getting into multi-cloud, I need to have my agents, in different geographies. And the test we're looking at right now, what we're working on is hybrid. It's in multi-clouds and it's in a customer location. So as we can take CyPerf, we can just implement it in our hybrid locally in a virtual private cloud as an appliance, as a VMware instance, various options there. So it gets us to there. And then finally, easy to use, right? We do a lot of different tests. We use a lot of different test tools. We want to use the test tools well, but you need to be able to use them quickly. And this is the same certainly for any large enterprises, carriers that are testing their networks. Those people are juggling lots of different things. They need to be able to kind of get going quickly with new products, with new test tools. And so, fortunately, CyPerf is very, very easy to use. The graphical interface, it's very, very straightforward. Setting parameters, anything you'd expect. You go into use it, you see, there's my system under test. Here's my simulated client or clients on one side. Here's my simulated server on the other side, and you can start working. So that's my long elevator speech into how we have been using CyPerf. I've just got a little bit of a couple of notes here about what's going on. Again, we've already been actively using it. The Keysight team's been great. They're great partners, very knowledgeable. It's a very powerful product. We have our first test is 100% done. It has an official publication date of just a few weeks, and that's going to be a next generation firewall. And you'll see some of the things we're talking about here, where we're taking it and we're looking at how it responds to large payloads, how it responds in terms of connection rates using very small payloads, how it responds to unencrypted traffic, how it responds to TLS encrypted traffic, and gives you a very, very good picture of how that all works. We've got SD-WAN and SASE projects in the works now. May, June timeframe, certainly by summertime, we'll have that. And with all of our Tolly reports, you can get them either from Tolly.com, our report site, and or through Keysight.